Okay. As we said this morning, the purpose of a launch mastermind, or any mastermind really, is for like-minded people to join together and to voice what they're experiencing, right? Some of the stuff might be positive, might be negative, it might be about real estate, it might not be about real estate. The goal at the end of the mastermind is for everyone to walk away and say, wow, maybe I could do more, or maybe I should try this new strategy, or maybe I should just approach it that way, or yeah, this is a really cool idea I'm going to implement right away. So let's first start off with asking, kind of opening the floor. What are some of the challenges that you guys are facing now? And Candace is on the call. For those that may have missed this morning, Candace is our new assistant productivity coach, and she's going to be working, pretty much every single day, creating training and learning opportunities for you to help you build your business and build your confidence. She and I are both super excited and gotten a lot of good feedback from our announcement this morning. So for those that may have missed it, this is Candace's story. And our video from this morning is live on our YouTube channel, so you can hear all about her accolades and her experience. What are you guys facing out there right now? What are you struggling with?
For me, it's people ghosting me, like people in my pipeline who I spoke with, late 2020, just trying to touch base with them again. They're not responding to texts and calls and emails. So just wondering how to handle that. And these are not people that I have really good relationships with. They're like people I've met at open houses or who are friends of friends of friends, that sort of thing.
Are these people that specifically told you that they had a, hey, call me in January or call me in March or something?
Yes, like I'll be ready to go late January to start looking, and then I really want to make sure that I'm on track late February to buy something.
Interesting. Okay. We got to remember that, as soon as we let them out of our appointment, right, they like hop in the car and they get down the road and they see Mark Spain will buy their home and they see they can go to Redfin for that and they go logging on to Zillow, right? So we have to, and I'm not insinuating you didn't create enough value, but there may have been something that, a question that could have been asked or answered, or a home that they found that you didn't tell them about that could have caused it. And like we heard from Paige earlier, they could just be busy, right? They may be so busy that they forgot to update you that they're not going to buy until next February. So I think just to, unless they tell you, listen, Donna, I became a realtor, or I married one, or I hate you, don't ever call me again, you're staying in the database, right? And I'm going to love on you until you turn it around, okay? Yep. Or until you marry a realtor or become one.
Yeah, when I heard Paige say that, that kind of made me feel a little better. So I'm gonna keep at it.
Yeah, I remember the funny story, one of my first open house was a little condo in Buckhead that I had listed. And there are 3 people that showed up to it. And so I put all 3 people in my database, and none of them had agents. And I came back into the office on Monday and I called all 3 and I said, all right, ready? Let's get going. Let's go find something. And nobody answered the phone. And I came in the next day and I was like, well, who am I going to call? So I called those people. I got them on the phone. They're like, oh, we're just looking, we'll probably be ready here, in a couple of months or whatever, or at some point in the future. So I came in the next day and I didn't have anyone else to call. And so I went right back to those 3 people. I'm like, well, has it been enough time? Like, why wouldn't you want to do something today? Right. And I realized that the best way to overcome clients or pipeline people that are not ready to take action today is to go find more people to court. Right. And if I'm courting enough people, if I'm in relationship with enough people, if I'm keeping track of all the things that they want, if I collect so many of those relationships, there's going to be enough that fall into place each month for me and my family to survive. Right. And that also goes to the idea of like, maybe there's a possibility that this isn't that great of a client. And if so, the best way to overcome a mediocre client is to go find another one, right? Not to drop them or be mad at them or, you know, tell them off. It's just, hey, this guy's not quite ready today, so I'm going to go find somebody different, right? Gary Keller says we find ourselves sometimes clinging to a poor client because we have a lack of prospects. And we have a lack of prospects because we've done a lack of prospecting, right? So what's the best defense for not having anyone that's jumping out that needs your attention today? Let's go find some more people. Candace, anytime you want to chime in, please feel free.
Yes, I was just going to say that I've learned that it's rarely about me. I tend, you know, the natural inclination is to say, oh, I did something wrong, I didn't do enough. But I found that it's just rarely about me. It's usually about some life event that's happening. And so consistency and just following up, loving on them is the key to building that relationship. And they'll either step forward. I've got clients right now that I'm kind of cleaning up my database, and I've past clients and I've sent out saying, hey, can you just let me know your birthday? And some of them are like right away. And one like from about a month ago just finally said, hey, we've been so busy. Well, they've given me their birthday. So that whole time I was thinking, oh boy, did I not contact them enough? But it's usually not about us. So just keep consistent and love on them. I agree.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thank you for adding that. You know, and we also, I'll come back with that idea. Donna, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. I would like to ask Candace, though, when you say love on them, what do you mean? Is that just touching base with them, doing care calls? What else does that entail for people that maybe are not past clients, but just other people in your sphere that you're hoping to do business with in the future?
So if I don't know them really well, I typically set up a system where it's a periodic touch of, it can include a phone call periodically, a text saying, hey, was just thinking about you, saw a home you might be interested in, or how is getting your home ready coming in case they're a listing client. Here, you know, recently I've gotten certified with Knock and Homeward. So now I'm reaching out to potential listings and saying, hey, I've got some offers that might just be tremendous for you. I know you were concerned about finding a home to live in. So just really thinking of ways to provide value. And there's no real magic to it. It's just everybody kind of does the same thing. It's around their needs. It's just identifying what their needs. And if you haven't had that conversation with them yet, maybe you didn't have a chance because you met them at Starbucks. Well, then just maybe saying, hey, you know, I'd love to get to know you better. You want to get together for coffee at Starbucks. And then maybe you can deepen that relationship. You kind of, as Bill says, everybody's a snowflake. Every transaction's a snowflake. So there's no formula for it except just to stay consistent and reach out with a touch, even if it's just, hey, I was thinking about you. It doesn't have to be terribly pithy. You don't have to spend all that time.
Right.
That's good. Thank you.
Especially, I use this a little bit in recruiting, which is like you assume that you're giving them a good reputation to live up to. And you would say something like, let's say I had a meeting with Candace and she blew it off or she forgot about it or something. So rather than just like not recognizing that, and rather than calling her and be like, hey, you missed our meeting, like what's going on, right? You could say something like, hey, is everything okay? Like, you know, I assume that like something must be really wrong for you to have missed that meeting, right? I wouldn't say it quite like that, but I would say, hey, I hope everything is okay. We missed each other, you know, yesterday at 2. Is there anything that I can do for you right now? So rather than going at it with like, hey, I'm upset that you missed the meeting, or hey, let's in your face, let's try to reschedule it. It's, gosh, you must need something. There must be some way I could help you because you would never have missed a meeting regularly, right?
Mm-hmm. And just yesterday, I sent out some texts and all they said was, hey, hope you're enjoying this beautiful weather. Nothing more than that.
Yeah. And then half the time they go, hey, honey, I guess it is time to buy a home. Let's go call
Mhm.
Candace.
Mhm.
Right?
Exactly.
What else are you guys experiencing out there, positive or negative? What can we do to help you?
I feel that I'm not taking a great lead with my clients. I feel that I'm giving them what they want, but I'm all over the place. And especially like having them zero in on where it is that they want to live. And it's just like, oh, I want to live in Stockbridge. Oh, I want to be in Mapleton. Well, maybe that's Loganville. And it's just like, I'm trying to, I'm trying to still be nice and give them what it is that they want. But it's frustrating a little bit because it's just like they're all over the place with it. And I don't know how to fix it. I don't know what I'm doing wrong because I asked them where they want to live. They give me 5 areas. I set them up for 5 areas, and lo and behold, they want to go see all the 5 areas. And I'm just like, I feel like I'm wasting time a little bit. I don't want to waste time.
And especially if one of the areas is Stockbridge and one is Lawrenceville and one is Mapleton. I mean, those are way different from each other, right?
Very much so.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too. Anybody, and certainly Candace. The initial thought that I have is, they've got to, when you send a list that's like, here's some options in Lawrenceville, here's some options in Stockbridge, here's some options in West Cobb or something, they don't like quite oftentimes understand that like Lawrenceville and Stockbridge are like an hour and a half away from each other, right?
Exactly.
And there's going to be traffic all over the place, right? So, if they say something like that and they just name 3 random cities that are pretty far away from each other, I would say something to the degree of, what is it about Stockbridge that has you attracted to Stockbridge? Or what is it about Mapleton that you really enjoy, right? And their response may indicate that they actually don't know that much about it, right? Or they've not spent a lot of time there, or they don't know what the commute would be like from that city, right? And that's when I would say, it sounds like, I can show you some options of what your budget would get you in these places, but they're kind of far away from each other. They're quite different. Like my suggestion to you would be, go have dinner in one of these areas, sit at the front of a neighborhood of a home that I sent you and see who comes and goes and make sure you like what you see, right? Go to a coffee shop there or a grocery store there and really feel what it would be like to live there. And if you're having a good experience, yeah, let's go take a look at some properties. But, I would also maybe suggest, why don't you leave a home in Stockbridge as if you lived there and go to work in Buckhead and see how you feel about that. And that morning at 8 o'clock, they're going to call you and be like, hey, Stockbridge is off the list, right?
I like that.
So you got to put them in that situation so that then they can decide, hey, am I having fun here or is this kind of a drag?
Okay.
And I'll just add, Ebony, that I have a client like that right now. And yes, I want to tear my hair out. But what I've done is they're moving from another city, so they don't know Atlanta well. And everybody's telling them, look at this place, look at that place. One of them's Stockbridge, one of them's Bethlehem. And yes, I have a client in Locust Grove right now. But what I've done is you can find wonderful things on the Chamber of Commerce websites, and each city has its own website. And so what I did was I sent her the links for those websites, and I said, why don't you do a little online exploring and then narrow it down a little bit, because you'll know that there's 1 or 2 places it's a better fit for you than the others. And she's really happy. We've narrowed it down. So I'm not driving to Stockbridge. We're driving to Woodstock and then also Roswell, which is great. So it's a way to help them be more resourceful with getting information. The other thing that I will do for people is, if they know where they're going to work and they're already living here, or they do know where they work, is I'll sometimes do MapQuest, and sometimes I'll say, well, what's your tolerance for a commute? And if they say, well, I need a home that's within 15 miles of where I work, well, I'll get on MapQuest and I'll just and I think you can do that on FMLS, but I've just always been, it's my habit, so that's what I do. I'll get on MapQuest and just map out the home address to their work address, and send that as just a way to provide value.
You can also go on Google Maps and they have like a traffic feature. So like, for example, if I want to know what traffic is like driving from Stockbridge to Buckhead at 7:30, then I can research that. And I say, this is what you'll be experiencing every morning.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel?
Okay. So I like those ideas, but let me go back to the Chamber of Commerce. So if I'm sending them to there, where am I exactly sending them to? Like, so when they go onto the website, what are they looking for?
So a lot of the websites, like we have Awesome Alpharetta, they'll tell what events are happening. They'll tell, they'll feature different events that are happening. They'll feature different, they usually have not school information, but they usually have information about the city. Like for instance, I've been researching Rockmart for an investor, and Rockmart has access to this Silver Comet Trail. They're known for having wedding venues. Each city kind of has its own little unique character, and that's where you can find that information.
Okay, perfect.
Woodstock has a lot of open air concerts. The little downtown is really cool. It's kind of a like downtown Roswell. If you've been down there, it's got some cool restaurants and a real young vibe. So just different things.
Thank you. That was helpful.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Who else? You're amongst friends. Share whatever you're going through.
All right. I got something. The same thing that we were talking about before with Paige is just trying to figure out what to offer on these homes, and how are the appraisals coming back now? Like, because so many people are putting bids on these houses.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like are the appraisers keeping up with that? Are they adjusting the homes accordingly? You know, like say, I found a perfect house for $275. It's priced great at $275. But there's going to be 25 people putting bids on this house. I mean, it might go for 300. Where do you put in an offer knowing that appraisal is going to come back for, say, 275? That's a lot of cash for somebody, and that's as much as the bank's going to lend. That's a lot of cash to ask somebody to put up front. So how do you balance these offers when you got 25 people you're competing against on a home?
Candace, you want to go first?
I think it's a conversation you have to have with your client. How bad? Oh, sorry, I got a phone call. How badly do you want to have this home? And this is probably what it's going to take. We don't know what the highest bid is going to come in at. So what's your tolerance? What would you come out of pocket and feel comfortable with overpaying? Just know that there's a chance that this might not be your home, but if it's not, then there's always another home out there. We'll find it. But I think you have to have that conversation with your client and be just very candid and say, this is the circumstance that we're in right now because we don't have a lot of inventory, and the appraisal might come back lower. Are you comfortable with that?
Paige didn't quite finish this thought, or maybe very clearly, but I think what she was insinuating is if you don't win, nothing else matters, right? So it's this idea of the highest and best. Like, let's get under contract first. Mm-hmm. Then once the other 89 people are out of the way, we can sort out any challenges that come up, including an appraisal issue, right? Mm-hmm. But if we hyper analyze every little thing that could go sideways in a transaction, we're probably never going to put a good enough offer out there for us to win in the first place, right? So you asked, are appraisals catching up with the activity? Probably not, to be honest. But I also haven't heard about a ton of low appraisals happening in the last couple weeks or couple months. So you never know. I mean, if a listing agent, the listing agent wants the home to go through, right? So if the 275 listing ends up being a contract price of 300, the listing agent is most likely, putting remarks in the private remarks that says, hey, highest and best is due at 2:00 on Wednesday. And they're showing the appraiser and most likely explaining to the appraiser, hey, we were, this particular buyer was one of 90 offers. I've never even heard of that, 90 offers, right? And that gives the appraiser some additional information so that you might have a good shot at getting there, right? And we're getting sometimes overly concerned with topics that never even manifest.
You're right. And I forgot about the whole listing agent with the appraiser scenario, that just like you could give them additional comps. I forgot about that. That could push that up a little bit too.
You know, or they, like, whenever I had a listing like that and we ended up above list price, I'd just go to I'd meet the appraiser out there, or I'd, you know, sometimes I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Sometimes I'd pull the lockbox off and said, no one's getting in without talking to me first. So call me and I'll give you the vendor lockbox code, right? You can't get in without knowing the code, and you can't get the code without talking to me. And I'm the one that wants to tell you something. So you got to go through me, right? And then when I got them on the phone, I'd say, hey, I want to share a little bit about the listing history. Okay. We listed the home at 3 o'clock on Thursday. We had 17 showings on Thursday. We had 84 showings on Friday. We got 134 offers. And that's why the price ended up being what it is. Right. And maybe the appraiser won't be exactly where I want it to be, but it's not for a lack of trying.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. And, you know, as we've mentioned before, like, you're only as good of a negotiator as your next best choice, right? So, like, if I don't have a ton of money to put as additional earnest money or down payment, or I don't have all cash, or I don't have the ability to lower contingency periods or something like that, well, like, you may not win, right? And you may have to explain that to a buyer to say, look, you know, there's probably 10 different ways that we can move this, you know, adjust this contract to be more appealing. Which 6 ways would you like to do it? And they're like, well, I don't want to do anything. Say, well, here's 89 people who are. So they're probably going to choose one of these people. What should we do knowing that, right? I've had a lot of success when I'm dealing with a buyer challenge to make them to put on their seller hat for a second and explain it the other way, right? Or when I'm dealing with a seller, help them understand what the buyer might be experiencing or thinking. And sometimes it's just that shift of focus that causes them to say, oh yeah, I guess submitting an offer for 240 on a 275 listing when they have 85 offers is probably not a good idea. Yeah, it's probably not. I would suspect that there's at least one offer above 240, don't you think? Especially since the last 10 sales have all been 270. What in the world, why in the world would a seller agree to sell for 240 if the last 10 sellers have sold for 270? And then they're like, yeah, gosh, that idea is pretty silly, isn't it? Make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, the floor is open. Donna, you haven't asked as many questions as you normally do. There's got to be something in there.
Yeah, I do have another question.
We love questions, by the way. I wasn't being a smartass.
Because there aren't a lot of houses out there for our buyers, we're having to do creative things like reaching out to, you know, targeting neighborhoods, reaching out to owners to see who might be willing to sell sometime in the future, or who they know that might be thinking of selling. What's your best script for approaching those homeowners to see if they're even entertaining that thought?
If they're entertaining the thought of becoming a seller or selling?
Possibly selling, because we have a buyer that's really interested in their neighborhood.
Anyone else want to comment, and then I'll go?
Can I jump? I'm going to jump out there, and I could be wrong.
You always can jump out there.
Okay. So what I'm seeing right now, like when I've been touring, is there's a lot of agents. You know, every time I'm touring somewhere, it's just like, God damn, this may be like 10 agents. So can we not start off kind of a script just saying, like, why not be a part of, I feel I'm saying this wrong, why not be a part of that? It's just like, look, if you're selling your home on your own, or not even selling your home, it's literally 10 cars at every home, you know, trying to get in to see that home. It's just like, hey, be a part of this. Like, it's going to be a multiple bid situation. So how do we kind of zero in and let them know from what it is that we're seeing? Like, look, Even if your house is worth 240, you'd probably get 245, 250 just in this market. How do we pull that back in and just let them know, like, hey, this is what's going on right now. Like, everybody's sellers are winning.
I like that line. Very straightforward. Sellers are winning. I was talking to Carrie Veal, called me yesterday. We talked for a little while, and she wanted to run an idea by me. And yeah, I was just name dropping. That's the Carrie Veal that was on Family Reunion stage. That's right. Anyway, what she did is she brought her client to look at some property, right? And she I think she posted the picture online. There was literally like 40 cars in the driveway and side streets and all that. And while they were waiting, she walked around and started knocking on all the other sellers' doors and said, "Hey, what do you think about this? Isn't this crazy? Right? What would it take for you to sell? Sellers are winning, right? Is there a number you have in mind? Because you could probably get it right now, right? By the way, do you happen to know anyone that has talked about moving that our team could help? By the way, when it comes to real estate, who do you trust, right? I was wondering if I could earn that opportunity to be your resource in real estate. Do you happen to have any questions right now? Right? So we can always go back to those that three ask script that we talk a lot about, right? When was the last time that you thought about moving? Or who do you know from church or work or the community that's expressed an interest in moving that we could possibly help? And hey, by the way, one last question while I got you on the phone. When it comes to real estate, who is it that you trust? Not do you have a realtor? They'll always say yes, so that conversation's over immediately, right? Hey, when it comes to real estate, who is it that you trust? And more often than not, they don't have a relationship. And in the situations that they do, when you say that you trust, what goes through their subconscious is, do I actually trust the person who I do have a relationship with, right? And the answer to that might be no. You see where I'm headed? So the idea is take advantage of what these neighbors are seeing. You can go to all the neighbors in that community and say, hey, did you happen to see that line of cars? What is your level of interest in selling? 1 is you're planning on staying in this home for all of eternity. And 10 is if you were given an offer today for your price, I would move in an instant. What would that be? Oh, you're an 8? Great. We've got some great technology that I can share with you where you can study the market by zip codes or by neighborhoods, and set them up on a neighborhood nurture. Would that be a value to you, right? If your number is 350 and maybe you could get 330 today, would you like me to call you when I think 350 is reasonable? Great. Expect a call in like 2 weeks when this deal sells, right? It's all about just having that conversation and figuring out under what circumstances would they be willing to take action. Candace, I'm sure you want to chime in, right?
No, that was really thorough. I thought that was really thorough. It's just, for instance, if you're talking about FSBOs, and if you're new, and I still say this, I don't say I say we, because I want to give them a sense that there's a whole back. So I don't say I can do this for you. I say we can get you more money for your home than you can on your own. And we can have more qualified buyers, more qualified offers for you if you'll list with us.
That's right. And then when you're speaking about, I always use similar language when I'm talking about our relationship also. So like when we set the price, when we agree to work together, when we take the photos, when we, hire the painter, right? It's always us. It's always we, because we're a team.
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
And I think that's helpful as a new realtor, because you're always like, well, I don't have the track record. I haven't done this, but you can use that power of we.
Yes. Love that. Ebony, was that, what did you think about that answer? Did that give you some good ideas? Wait, was that Ebony's question? I forget now.
That was me.
Oh, Don's
Yeah, I have a buyer that's interested in a particular neighborhood, but there's absolutely nothing on the market in that neighborhood. And there were probably about 8 sales last year. The last one I think was in December, and it's about a 48 home neighborhood. So just wondering how I should approach that.
I would knock every single door. I would knock the door.
Yep.
I'd have my mask on, and I'd have a little one sheet that introduced, me, and kind of gave maybe a testimonial or two, and maybe your unique value proposition, right? Why you're special, and they'd answer the door, and I'd take a step back so we're 6 feet away, right? Make them feel nice and safe, and then tell them exactly what you just said. I'm working with an incredible family. They're super well qualified. They want to live in this neighborhood. When was the last time you were thinking about selling? Do you happen to know anybody who has thought about selling that I could help connect with my buyer? By the way, while I got you here, who is it when it comes to real estate? Who is it that you trust? Right? Thank you so much for taking a couple minutes with me. I hope you have a wonderful day. Right? And you got your pen and paper ready to scribble down anything they tell you that's important. Right? If you go knock 48 doors, let's just pretend for a second. You go knock 48 doors. Let's just assume for a second that takes, let's say you're going to get 20 people to answer the door. That's probably aggressive. Let's say you get 10 people to answer the door. So you have 10 5-minute conversations. That's an hour. And then it takes you, what would that be? 38 people who you knocked, but they didn't answer the door. So that's probably another 38 minutes. So in less than 2 hours, you can have 10 conversations. And we know from statistics that approximately 10 to 12% of the community will be moving every year. So you parlayed 2 hours of activity into at least one closing at some point in the future. Is that a good investment of your time?
Absolutely.
And I'll just add to that.
Here are the results of all that door knocking, Donna.
I know, right?
Yeah, and door knocking's the only option because I looked up the neighborhood on Remind last night, and they're all kind of listed as do not call. So the only option is to go and knock.
Right. There is not a do not knock list that I'm aware of.
And Donna, I love the heartfelt letters from buyers. I think it's representing the buyer. It's a really strong thing. I would probably have my buyers write a heartfelt letter about why they want to live in that neighborhood, and I would just hand that out as well.
I love that. That could be your handout.
That's a great idea. I did not think that's
You're
an
welcome.
awesome idea.
And then the other thing I would say is after you door knock, follow up with letters, because there's not a do not mail list, is there?
No, there isn't.
So yeah, so just follow up with letters saying, hey, was in your neighborhood, and here's what I have a buyer that wants to live in this neighborhood desperately, and just follow up with the scripts that Bill said, but just put them in writing.
That's great. Thank you.
There's one more thing that I would add to that, which is I always like including language like, I made a commitment to my buyer that I would knock every door in this community.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Because what they hear is, hey, the person staring at me right now is comfortable making commitments, and they're comfortable executing on the commitments.
Yeah.
Right? And so the language is really, really important. Right? I made a commitment to this particular family that I would come and meet every one of you and your neighbors, because they have a goal to live in this community. So I'm here trying to make it work. Who do you know? Right? And what they hear is, this guy is comfortable making commitments. And if he's willing to do that for this guy, he's probably willing to do something similar for me.
Excellent.
Bianca, were you about to say something?
Yeah, I'm just curious. So when you have a person that has a particular neighborhood in mind that they want to live in, are the expectations already set as far as whatever house is available, they'll just take it?
No, not necessarily. I mean, if they need a master on the main and the first home that pops up isn't a master on the main, then they're not going to want to buy it.
Yeah, I'm just asking, like, as far as if you go door knocking, what if the layout doesn't really fit that person, and then you've had this conversation. I'm just,
And then you have the opportunity to list the house,
Yeah.
find another buyer who does like it.
Right. I
And
didn't
it won't-
necessarily say my buyer wants to buy your house. I said the buyer wants to move into the neighborhood.
okay. Okay.
So I made a commitment to knock the door, and I followed the commitment, or I executed on the commitment. It's not that I promised my buyer that I promised, what am I trying to say? That my buyer's definitely going to want your home if you're willing to sell it, because you got a long way to go. It might not be priced right. It might not be in the right condition. The timing might not work. I mean, it's a long shot. The question is I'm being truthful because I made a commitment, and my buyer does in fact want to live in this neighborhood.
Right. So I'm just thinking, yeah, okay. So it's just the way, thinking of how I would word it when speaking with them.
Yeah, and, there is like the one exception just popped in my head. Let's say somebody's like, hey, I got to have a ranch. And you go knock on a 2-story house, you're getting pretty close to the line there, right?
Right.
But because if you're like, yeah, well, bring your buyer over, we're considering selling. Say, and the buyer comes like, hey, I need a ranch. And they're like, wait, you were lying to me. You see, so you got to be careful a little bit, but you get where I'm headed, right?
Yeah.
On that note, I have another question. What if it's someone else's buyer? Can you still go out and look for a house to list that they can buy?
Sure.
If they're working with another agent, that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but if somebody raises their hand and say, I would sell, and I'll just call my realtor because, give me the name of your buyer and I'll call my realtor and we'll make the deal work, then you might be cut out of that deal. But do you follow that?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so.
Because if you don't have the buyer and you don't have the seller, you ain't gonna get paid.
Right.
But if you're trying to get the seller for somebody else's buyer, I think that's acceptable behavior. But you got to understand that it may not work perfectly.
And in the realm of creating loyalty and proving your value to people, I often would tell my buyers even back in the day, because sometimes the home they wanted wasn't on the market, and even when there were plenty of homes, but I would definitely tell them, I would say, something that I've done for some of my other clients is I've been proactive and went to a neighborhood that doesn't have a home that's listed, if this is the neighborhood you like, and I'll reach out to those homeowners and see if any of them would like to sell. And that's a way to prove to your buyer that you're working on their behalf as well.
Right. So you could do that for your buyers, your personal clients, or colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
Virtually any excuse you can make to go get belly to belly with people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Bianca, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right. This has been I got to be honest with you guys, this has been one of the best launch masterminds we've had in a long time. This is fun. Who else has got some thoughts?
Just backing up, a few minutes ago, you said there's no such thing as do not knock list. What about, like, you said something along those lines. There's a big neighborhood across the street. I've told you a few times about it. The old golf course, everything's beautiful, but throughout the entire place you're driving around, there's no solicitation signs placed along the roadway everywhere.
Yeah.
So what's the only way I can get into there? Just by like having to mail something to them?
If that was the case, yeah, I'd do mail instead. If it's very clear, I appreciate you bringing that up, because that is a little bit of a, it's not even really that gray. That they say no soliciting, you shouldn't solicit, right? And I usually I can talk my way out of things, but I think that's pretty clear. In that situation, if it's a no soliciting neighborhood, I would mail rather than sit there and knock the doors.
Okay. I was just wondering, just see what our rules were.
Yeah, that's what I would do. I tend to be less of a rule follower than most. However, I'm going to stick to that one.
Roger that.
All right. What else?
Well, so
Yeah.
for me, being new, I'm just trying to figure out my approach, and I guess I'm gonna try different strategies as far as like just building and making connections with people. So open houses, leads, just I guess some kind of direction on, you know, as a person starting off, what are some things that you think are best ways to go about it? Door knocking, calling, what are just some suggestions?
Bill, can I jump in here?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so I have a mindset that prospecting can be fun. And one of the ways that I have built business is by doing things I love, volunteering. I have a client who's now a Keller Williams agent, a past client, and I met her in a belly dance class. And Donna and Ebony have heard this, but I met her because I was interested in taking belly dance. You spend an hour laughing because it's so funny, and then you exercise the heck out of yourself. And anyway, I met this woman and we did a closing. I've met people volunteering that I've helped. So go get involved in the activities that you like. You'll meet like-minded people. They'll be fun to work with, and add that to your list of prospecting. You don't have to pay for a class. You can just join one of the meetups. There's so many meetups out there, and they're great ways to meet people. So just have a little fun with it too.
Yeah,
Okay.
think about the way that you, like, if you could snap your finger or wave a wand and say, I'm going to do exactly what I want to do every day, right?
Mhm.
So let's say when I wake up, I go to the, restaurant and have breakfast. Then I go play golf. Then I go and, go to the bar or whatever, right? You can prospect at all of those places, right? Your lifestyle and prospecting could completely blend with each other, right? If Candace really enjoys, networking with other business owners or going to community events or volunteering, then she could go probably make an absolute fortune being an awesome person during those moments. And she could probably have so many opportunities she wouldn't know what to do with them. So sometimes we think of prospecting as like we have to like step outside of ourselves and go do something for 3 hours that we don't enjoy. That's actually not the case at all. Prospecting is simply talking to people in any format, right? It's simply getting into conversation with people,
Right.
right? Anyone else want to add to that? Okay, so one of the things that we've suggested is to identify, and interestingly enough, Paige said the exact same thing today. Identify 3 pillars of lead generation. Sometimes we call them levers, right? Is it open house? Is it Facebook ads? Is it circle prospecting? Is it door knocking? Whatever it may be. And rather than trying to be like good at 50 different things, let's really hone in on, let's say 3, right? And I'm going to create a plan specifically around these 3. This is basically the GPS, right? We've got the GPS business planning video in the weekly email. It's been there for a little while, where you identify the 3 types of lead generation that you want to do. We also have a link to the PC roadmaps file where it gives you some examples of a GPS and some examples of priorities and strategies that would match up with that goal. And say, if we want to find business by social media, what are the specific strategies that we're going to use, right? How often do we post? What is the unique content that we're creating? How often do we deliver it, right? What is the standard for the Travis Vitale real estate organization with respect to social media, right? Like we had Laura Lerman on a few months ago, and she says, like, every Tuesday I post this, every Wednesday I post this, every Thursday I post this. And so she does this thing where she posts like a crazy photo, like a real estate photo. Let's say it was a picture of a bathroom, and like, it had like pink carpet and pink this and pink that. It was just a wild, unusual looking photo. And it's like, comment here, or like, what do you think of this, or something like that, right? And it had become normal for her audience to see those posts every Wednesday or something like that. And then she didn't post one Wednesday. They should be calling her like, hey, Laura, are you okay? You on the side of the road somewhere? You in jail? Like, what the hell? Why didn't you post? I follow this. This is something that's important to me. This is how I interact with you. So what standards can you be thinking of for your business such that your audience comes to expect it from you, right? What does your brand represent? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I actually saw somebody that I follow on YouTube said something similar, where she usually ends with like a statement, and she didn't do it in one of her videos. And a lot of people responded saying, hey, you didn't tell us this. So yeah.
My coach, whenever our conversation's done, the very last thing she always says to me is, take care of you. That's her line. Very similar. Take care of you. Right? It's kind of like this idea. We talked about this the other day. Like, they tell you when you're on the airplane, like, if the masks come down from the ceiling, put your mask on first, then help your neighbor. Right? If your tank is empty, you're not going to be all that successful helping anyone else.
Bill, I have a question.
Yeah.
I know we've discussed this before, but I cannot remember. I would love for my social media presence to be a lot greater than what it is. What are some good companies that we can go to who can manage our social media?
When you say manage, you mean like create the content or like physically post it, or what do you mean?
Create the content and post it. Or if I have something that I want to post, but I'm just, for lack of time, have not done it, or I don't know how to make it look as presentable as I want it to, like kind of them having my idea and it's just like, okay, run with it and make it pretty. I don't know where to reach out, what companies to reach out to have them do that.
There's one company that I don't currently have an account, but I'm about to sign back up with them. It's called Keeping Current Matters. It's like $24 a month or $25 a month. And they do a lot of like the infographic kind of designs, that like the modern looking infographics, and they're all like in JPEG and stuff, so you can share them on social media. We can design a lot of that stuff within Command through the Designs applet. I don't have a particularly creative mind. I've worked with my VA sometimes will do some stuff in designs. I've hired people on Fiverr to kind of create like little flashy designs. I've also, if you were to go to a company like, or a Facebook page like Lab Code Agents, and you were to put, who manages your social media, or, that kind of thing, you'd probably get hundreds of recommendations. I just sent one to my assistant a few days ago, and we're doing a little research on it. I'm trying to remember what it was called exactly, but it was, they didn't post it for you, but they created all the content, right?
Hey, Ebony,
Yes.
are you on Facebook? Are you friends with the Roswell Rocks Facebook group?
I am.
Yeah, post on there, because I know what you're talking about, and I've seen some of I got to figure out the same thing that you're talking about. I've seen some of the agents, and it looks like professionally done. It all has their picture and then a picture of a house and all this kind of cool content. So somebody, if you just post that question, can help you out, because I have the same question you do, like who built that picture with all the content and the house, like all that stuff.
Okay, I'm gonna do that today, because I'm like, I want my pictures to be just as, fabulous as everyone else's. Like, I don't want it to be phone quality, and then, I do my post a disservice because I didn't take that necessary time to kind of polish it up. So I definitely want to, I'll definitely go ahead and look on there.
Exactly. I'm in the same boat, because I couldn't do that with computers. Whoever made that, I don't know how they did that. So I want to know that too. So that's where I would start out, is Roswell Rocks.
And I would also, thank you for sharing that, Travis. What I would do is, if you see something that's attractive, poke the person that did it and say, hey, you do this yourself, or did you hire somebody? Right? There's all kinds of freelance, kind of design companies that do that kind of thing. I would say, remember that we have our, how do I want to say this properly? Remember that whenever we identify a challenge that we are currently facing, there's only two ways to deal with it. One is with our time, and the other is with our money, right? And the money is essentially buying somebody else's time, right? So I don't know much about that, and I don't have the patience to sit down and learn. So I'm going to pay somebody to go do that, right? And it'll just appear and they'll send me a bill for it. So you got to ask yourself, do I have the knowledge and the skill, and do I have the expertise, or should I go find somebody to manage this stuff for me? And as we are beginning our businesses, we have to ask ourselves, like, you know, should I be using my time for this or my money for this, right? And you'll have to determine, you know, based on your specific situation and how much you dislike the task at hand, which one you choose. Like the guy who cuts my grass could just about charge me anything. There is no way in hell I'm cutting grass. You see what I'm saying?
It makes sense. And you said that before, and I guess now, because I'm finally getting to different stages and I'm learning how to use leverage in certain things, it's just like, okay, I find myself being stressed out a lot, and then I think about you, like, time or money, Ebony. What is it gonna be? So I'm applying the stuff that you're saying.
I appreciate that. It's man, the first time I ever paid somebody to do something, I sat there and, like, we paid this guy, this little teenager kid in the neighborhood, to come and fold our clothes because I didn't want to fold them, and my wife doesn't have time to fold them, and the kids were too young to fold them. And we brought him over and we paid him $25 to fold all the laundry, and I literally sat there and watched him, and it felt so amazing. Right? I didn't do anything with my newfound time. I was just thinking about how awesome it was. It changes the way you operate, because you're like, that's just not what I do. Like, if the toilet's broken, I'm going to call the plumber. Like, I don't want to fix a toilet. I don't know how. I don't have the tools. I don't have the time. You see what I'm saying?
Makes a lot of sense.
All right, Candace, you want to share any words of wisdom with our group here?
I think they've been shared. I think, you know, we get a lot in our own way because we think it has to be a certain way. And mostly it's just really important to move forward. Don't judge yourself. Get rid of that inner judge. You're going to get better at whatever you're doing that you do consistently. And the most important thing is just to, like I said this morning, just get out and take action. Take one step minimum a day to move yourself forward. If today's a day where you're just not up to it, make it a simple step. Make it send out texts to your friends. Make it easy on yourself. If it's a day when you feel up to the challenge, tackle some harder things. But
Love
I
it.
thank you for letting me share in here. I appreciate it.
Hey, this is going to be your room very soon.
Appreciate your voice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you for being a part of our session today. One goal that I have is to start to kind of create a little bit more energy around the WhatsApp launch group. So if there's anything that is, you have some good experiences, or you have some kind of something that pops up you have a question about, both Candace and I and all the rest of the launch agents are in that WhatsApp group. So don't hesitate to use that format. And I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for your all your time today. I know we had a jam-packed day. I'm looking forward to hearing some good news from the weekend next week. Take care.